The night was supposed to be magical. The lights from the family estate glowed like golden lanterns against the dark sky, and the laughter of relatives spilled out into the driveway. I stood there for a moment, clutching the small gift I had brought, trying to gather the courage to step inside. This was my family. My parents, my siblings, my cousins. People I had grown up with. But lately, things hadn't been the same. Calls went unanswered. Invitations to gatherings never reached me. Still, I thought maybe tonight would be different. I pushed open the door and walked in, expecting the warmth of family. Instead, silence swept through the room like a sudden storm. Conversations stopped. Glasses froze midair. Every pair of eyes turned toward me, some wide with shock, others narrowed with something darker. Then I heard it. My mother's voice. Cold, sharp, cutting through the silence. "What are you doing here?" I blinked, unsure if I heard her right. Before I could even respond, my father's voice followed. Louder, harsher. "You weren't invited." The words hit me like a slap. My chest tightened. My fingers dug into the wrapping paper of the gift I held. I looked around the room, at my siblings smirking, at my cousins whispering, at distant relatives raising their brows in judgment. My face burned, humiliation crawling across my skin. "But, it's the family party," I managed to whisper. My voice cracked, barely audible. My mother tilted her head, smiling in that cruel, condescending way she always did when she wanted to remind me of my place. "Exactly. Family. And you should know by now, you don't belong here." A few people chuckled under their breath. Others looked away, uncomfortable. But no one spoke up. No one defended me. I was alone. I felt the weight of years pressing down on me. Years of being the forgotten one, the overlooked child, the shadow in a family that only celebrated perfection. My siblings were the stars, the chosen ones. I was the mistake. But what they didn't know, what not a single person in that room realized, was that their cruel words, their rejection, their arrogance, it was all feeding the fire inside me. Smiled. Just a small, quiet smile. They thought they had humiliated me. They thought I would break down, leave in tears, and disappear once again into the background of their perfect lives. But they had no idea. The unwanted guest was about to become the storm they never saw coming. The silence in the room pressed against me like a weight I couldn't shake. My father stood tall, his jaw clenched, his eyes narrowed in disapproval, as though my very presence was a crime. My mother's arms folded across her chest, her lips curled in a cruel smirk. Around them, my relatives whispered and exchanged glances, enjoying the spectacle unfolding before their eyes. "Didn't you hear us?" my father barked. "You weren't invited. Leave." A lump formed in my throat. My palms grew damp around the small gift I still held, a carefully wrapped box that suddenly felt like a symbol of my own foolish hope. I had spent hours choosing it, thinking maybe, just maybe, tonight I would feel included, that I would belong. Instead, laughter echoed around me. Not the warm, familiar laughter of family, but sharp, mocking laughter meant to cut me down. My older brother, Daniel, stepped forward, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Wow, you actually showed up. Did you forget this isn't your place anymore?" His words stung because they carried truth. For years, I had been treated like an outsider, as though I were some burden they all had to carry. They excluded me from family trips, left me out of celebrations, and always found ways to remind me I wasn't good enough. Tonight was simply another chapter in a story I knew too well. But this time felt different, colder, more deliberate, like they wanted to humiliate me in front of everyone. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay steady. I just wanted to celebrate with the family. Like old times. The room erupted with chuckles. My mother shook her head slowly, savoring the moment. "Old times are gone. You should have stayed where you belong, in the shadows." Her words sliced through me, deeper than any knife could. A heat spread across my chest, not just from the humiliation but from the anger bubbling beneath it. I had been patient. I had stayed silent. I had endured years of rejection, convincing myself it was better to avoid conflict. But as I stood there, humiliated in front of everyone, I realized something powerful. Silence had only given them power. I glanced around the room, studying every face. My cousins, pretending to sip their drinks while smirking. My siblings, exchanging proud glances like they had finally won some invisible battle. My parents, standing there as though they had crushed me for good. What they didn't know was that I wasn't broken. Not this time. Inside me something shifted. Spark. A realization. If they wanted me gone so badly, if they thought I had no power, no place, then they were about to learn just how wrong they were. Because I had something none of them knew about. Something I had kept hidden, waiting for the right moment. And tonight, the night they thought they had humiliated me beyond repair, was the night I decided to use it. So instead of breaking down, instead of leaving in tears like they expected, I smiled. A slow, deliberate smile that made a few relatives shift uncomfortably. I set the gift down on the table, my voice calm, almost eerie against the laughter that had filled the room. "You're right," I said softly. "I wasn't invited. But maybe that's exactly what makes tonight so perfect." Confusion rippled through the crowd. My father's brows furrowed. My mother tilted her head, no longer smirking, just studying me as though suddenly unsure. For the first time in years I felt the shift in power. Small, subtle, but real. They thought they had control. But control was about to slip right out of their hands. And none of them, not my mother, not my father, not my siblings, had the faintest idea just how much I was capable of. The room had gone quiet after my last words. The confidence in my tone wasn't something my family was used to hearing. For years I had been the silent one, the pushover, the one they mocked without resistance. But tonight, I wasn't playing their game anymore. My father's voice broke through the tension. "What's that supposed to mean?" he demanded, his tone sharp, laced with impatience. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I let the silence stretch, watching unease ripple across the room. My mother's smirk faltered, my brother shifted uncomfortably, and my cousins, those vultures, suddenly seemed less amused. For once, they were the ones waiting on me. I finally leaned forward, resting my hand on the gift box I had set down earlier. My fingers tapped against it softly, each beat echoing like a countdown. "It means," I said slowly, locking eyes with my father, "that I know things you've spent years trying to keep buried." A ripple of whispers spread across the room. My mother's face stiffened, her carefully crafted expression of superiority cracking just slightly. She forced a laugh, high-pitched and brittle. "Oh, please. You've never known anything. You've always been too weak, too naive." But her eyes betrayed her. She was nervous. I let out a small chuckle, the kind that carried more truth than any words could. "You really think I haven't noticed? All the late-night meetings, the sudden money that just appeared, the way you two fought behind closed doors, thinking no one could hear? I noticed everything. And more importantly," I leaned closer, lowering my voice, forcing them all to hang on every syllable, "I have proof." That word, proof, hit the room like a thunderclap. My brother, Daniel, scoffed loudly. "You're bluffing. You've got nothing." But his voice shook, just slightly. I turned my gaze on him, tilting my head. "If I've got nothing, why do you look so nervous right now?" His face flushed crimson. He opened his mouth to fire back, but no words came. Instead, he looked toward my parents, silently begging them to take control of the situation. My father slammed his fist against the table, rattling glasses and silverware. "Enough of this nonsense. You don't belong here. Get out, before you embarrass yourself any further." Smiled. A slow, deliberate smile that only made his anger burn hotter. "Oh, Dad. The only people who are going to be embarrassed tonight are you." The weight of those words hung in the air. No one dared to speak. Even the cousins who usually enjoyed watching the drama unfold now sat frozen, wide-eyed. I straightened my posture, finally lifting the gift box and holding it in front of me. "You see this? It isn't just a gift. It's a reminder. A reminder that everything you've tried to take from me, my dignity, my place in this family, even my future, you've already lost. Gasps filled the room. My mother's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her glass of wine, trying to mask her unease. But I wasn't done. You thought you could erase me. That by excluding me from every event, every decision, every piece of this family, I'd eventually fade away. But you forgot one thing: I pay attention. And when people like me pay attention, we learn things. Dangerous things. My voice was calm, almost soothing, but the weight behind it was undeniable. So go ahead. Keep laughing. Keep pretending I don't matter. Because very soon, the truth you've buried will come crashing down on all of you. And when it does, this party will be remembered for more than just your cruelty. It'll be remembered as the night everything changed. I placed the gift back on the table gently, almost ceremoniously, and then leaned back, letting the silence consume the room once again. This wasn't just a family party anymore. This was the battlefield. And for the first time, they weren't holding the weapons. It was. The air in the room was heavy, every second stretching longer than the last. My family, those people who had treated me like an outsider my whole life, now sat frozen, their forced smiles gone. For the first time, they were scared of me. My father's jaw clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might crack. My mother avoided my eyes, swirling the wine in her glass like she could somehow drink away the tension. And Daniel. My dear brother Daniel, he was pale, his fingers tapping against the table like a ticking clock. You don't know what you're talking about, my father finally growled. But his voice wavered. Just enough. I tilted my head, studying him. Don't I? Because if I don't know anything, then why did I see you sneaking into Mr. Hargrove's office last month? Late at night, after everyone thought you were out of town. The color drained from his face. Murmurs rippled across the room. My cousins exchanged wide-eyed glances, their curiosity piqued. I leaned forward, my voice calm, almost conversational. You remember Hargrove, don't you? The family lawyer who's been with us for years. Funny thing, he's not just a lawyer. He's also very bad at locking his filing cabinets. My mother's hand tightened around her wine glass so suddenly, I thought it might shatter. You're lying, she hissed. But it wasn't conviction in her voice. It was panic. I let out a soft laugh. Oh, Mother, if I were lying, I wouldn't have the documents in my possession, now would I? Daniel slammed his hand on the table. What documents? You're bluffing. You've always been nothing. Why would Dad or Mom hide anything from you? I turned slowly, locking eyes with him, letting the silence weigh before answering. Because I'm the one they thought wouldn't notice. The invisible child. Despair. But invisibility has its perks. People say things when they think you're not listening. They leave things lying around when they assume you'll never look. And that's how secrets slip through the cracks. The room was deathly quiet now. Only the faint hum of music from the other side of the house could be heard. I reached into my bag and pulled out a single envelope, thick with papers. I didn't open it yet. I only placed it on the table with deliberate care. Inside this envelope are records, transactions, transfers of money that don't belong to you, evidence of property that should have been mine but was quietly shifted into someone else's name. Gasps echoed through the room. My father's fist clenched. My mother's eyes darted nervously between me and the envelope, calculating her next move. And Daniel looked like he might leap across the table and snatch it from my hands. You're making a mistake, my father said finally. His voice low, dangerous. But there was something else behind his words. Fear. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms, a small smirk tugging at my lips. No, Father. The mistake was underestimating me. The mistake was thinking I'd never find out. And the biggest mistake of all was inviting everyone here tonight. Because now, the truth won't just destroy you in silence. It'll unravel in front of everyone you've ever tried to impress. The cousins whispered among themselves, excitement and dread buzzing in the air. For once, the family drama wasn't about petty gossip. It was about the very foundation of everything my parents had built. And they knew it. Because in that envelope lay the cracks in their perfect little mask. Cracks that I was ready to shatter wide open. The envelope sat on the table like a loaded weapon. Nobody dared touch it, but every eye in the room was glued to it. My fingers rested lightly on the edge, and for a long, quiet moment I didn't move. I let the silence do the work, let their fear grow. Finally I broke it. "Since you all seem so curious," I said softly, "let's start with something simple." I opened the envelope, the sound of tearing paper louder than the music drifting in from the other room. I pulled out the first sheet, a photocopy carefully highlighted. "This," I said, holding it up for the room to see, "is the deed to the lake house. The one we all spent summers in as children. You remember it, don't you? The barbecues, the fireworks, the family reunions." A nostalgic murmur spread across the table. Everyone remembered. But then I dropped the dagger. What you might not know is that the house was never in Father's name. It was in mine. The room went dead silent. I placed the paper flat on the table, sliding it forward so the cousins, the uncles, the aunts could lean in and see for themselves. My name was printed clearly on the deed. My father's wasn't anywhere to be found. Gasps broke out. My aunt covered her mouth in shock. My uncle muttered, "That can't be right." My father's face was crimson now, veins bulging at his temples. "You don't know what you're talking about," he barked. But his voice cracked, betraying him. I leaned forward, locking eyes with him. "Don't I? Because here's the truth. Grandfather left the house to me. Not to you. Not to Daniel. Me. I was supposed to inherit it when I turned 21. But somehow the deed got lost, and suddenly you were telling everyone it was yours." I paused, letting the words sink in. "But I found the original document. And then when I dug deeper I found the trail, the forged signatures, the illegal transfer, the hush money you paid to keep the lawyer silent. It all leads back to you, Father." The whispers erupted into full-blown chatter now. Cousins pointing, aunts gasping, uncles shaking their heads in disbelief. Daniel finally snapped. He lunged for the papers, but I was faster. I pulled them back before his hand touched them. "Touch this envelope, Daniel," I said coldly, "and I swear I'll make sure everyone here gets a copy in their email before you even sit back down." He froze. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes. My mother, pale and trembling, finally spoke. "Please stop this. You don't understand what you're doing." I turned to her, my expression softening just slightly. "No, Mother. I understand perfectly. For years I thought I was unwanted, that I was a mistake. But the truth is, I was never unwanted. I was a threat. You pushed me out because you knew I had something you couldn't control." The room was a battlefield now. Some relatives leaning closer to me, others whispering furiously to my father, demanding explanations. The family's perfect image was crumbling right there at the dinner table. I tucked the first document back into the envelope and looked around the room, a cold smile on my lips. "And that's just the beginning. The lake house is only one piece of what you stole from me. There's more. Much more. And if you think tonight was about a simple party, you have no idea what's coming next." The tension was suffocating. My father's empire, the lies, the wealth, the control, was starting to collapse, and I wasn't done. Not even close. Because this was only the first secret. And the deeper I went into that envelope, the darker it was going to get. The envelope sat in front of me like a treasure chest of destruction. Everyone was still reeling from the lake house revelation, but I wasn't finished. Not even close. I tapped my fingers on the table, then slowly pulled out the next set of papers. Unlike the deed, these weren't just numbers and property records. These were personal. Do you all remember when I suddenly disappeared for almost a year after college? I asked, scanning the faces around me. A few relatives nodded uncertainly. Some whispered to each other. "You were told I dropped out. That I couldn't handle the pressure. That I ran away from responsibility." I held up a set of medical records, the hospital logo stamped across the top. My voice trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of finally saying the words out loud. The truth is, I was in the hospital, recovering, not from a breakdown but from an accident. The word hung heavy in the air. I turned my eyes directly to Daniel. His face went pale. An accident that you caused, Daniel. You remember, don't you? That night after the party, when you'd had too much to drink, and you swore me to silence because you didn't want your perfect reputation ruined. I ended up in the ER. You ended up clean and polished, like nothing ever happened. The room erupted. Someone even dropped their wine glass, the crash echoing through the dining room. Daniel stammered. That's not, you can't prove. But I cut him off, slamming the hospital record down on the table. I don't have to prove it. The doctor's notes, the blood alcohol report, even the police file that somehow got buried. It's all right here. And do you know why it disappeared? Because Father made sure it did. He paid people off. He erased the evidence. He protected you, Daniel, at my expense. All eyes turned to my father now. His jaw clenched, but his silence was louder than any words. I spent months healing, I continued, my voice rising with fury. And the whole time you told the world I was weak. You painted me as a failure, when in reality I was your scapegoat. You didn't want anyone to know your golden boy nearly destroyed me. My mother whispered, barely audible. We were only trying to protect the family name. That broke something in me. I stood, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Protect the family name. You sacrificed me for your precious reputation. You left me broken and alone so Daniel could keep shining. Do you have any idea what that did to me? Do you even care? The relatives were in chaos now. Some of them were demanding answers from my parents. Others were staring at Daniel like they didn't recognize him anymore. The carefully crafted image of a perfect family was unraveling thread by thread. I looked around the table, my breathing heavy, my hands trembling, but my voice steady as steel. You lied about who I was. You erased the truth to protect your favorites. But tonight, all those lies are coming back to you. And I'm not done. Because this envelope still has more. And the next secret is the one that will tear everything apart. The room was dead silent again. My father's hand was gripping the armrest so tightly his knuckles were white. Daniel looked like he was seconds from bolting. My mother looked like she might collapse. And I felt powerful. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the discarded child. I was the one holding the match over their empire of lies. And I was about to light it. The silence was suffocating. My heart hammered in my chest, but my hands didn't shake as I pulled the last document from the envelope. Everyone leaned forward, their faces tight with dread. This, I said, holding it high enough for everyone to see, is the secret my parents never wanted anyone to know. The one they've spent years burying. The one that proves their betrayal goes far deeper than favoritism or lies. I laid the paper flat on the table. Gasps rippled across the room before I even spoke. The logo at the top was unmistakable, a law firm's letterhead. This, I continued, is proof that years ago my parents rewrote their will. And guess what? They cut me out of it completely. Every penny, every asset, every piece of land. All of it was left to Daniel. Not because I'd done anything wrong but because they wanted to erase me. Their own child. The room exploded. Cousins were whispering furiously. Aunts were staring at my parents with disgust. And even a few uncles who'd always worshipped my father looked shaken. Daniel tried to smirk, though his face was pale. So what? They chose me. Maybe you just weren't good enough. I stepped closer to him, my voice low but sharp enough to cut through the chaos. Not good enough. Daniel, everything you have was stolen from me. The house. I helped renovate it. The family business. I worked twice as hard as you ever did. And the will. It wasn't about my worth, it was about control. They wanted to make sure you were the shining heir, while I was erased from existence. I turned back to my parents. But here's the part you didn't expect. That little change you made to the will, it's invalid. Because when you secretly altered it, you violated the trust agreement set up by grandfather. And I have the documents to prove it. I slid another paper across the table. This one bore my grandfather's signature. The room fell silent again. Grandfather knew what kind of people you were. He protected me. This document states that any attempt to disinherit me voids the changes. Which means, I let the words hang in the air, savoring the moment. I am the sole inheritor of everything. The properties, the businesses, the accounts, all of it. Not Daniel. Not you. My mother's face crumpled. My father's jaw tightened, rage burning behind his eyes. Daniel slammed his fist on the table. You're lying. This is fake. But before I could respond, my uncle, a lawyer, leaned forward, squinting at the document. Then he looked at Daniel, his voice calm but devastating. It's real. The color drained from Daniel's face. My parents froze. The entire room erupted again, but this time the noise wasn't against me. It was against them. I raised my voice over the chaos. For years, you treated me like I didn't belong. You told me I wasn't wanted, wasn't invited, wasn't family. But the truth is, everything you tried to take from me was already mine. You just didn't want me to know it. I locked eyes with my parents, my voice sharp with finality. Tonight your lies die. Tonight your empire collapses. Tonight everyone sees you for what you really are. Selfish, cruel, and broken. And tomorrow you wake up with nothing. The room was stunned into silence again. Relatives shifted uncomfortably, some outright glaring at my parents and Daniel. The weight of truth hung in the air like a hammer ready to drop. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the outsider. I was the storm. And my parents, they were finally drowning in the flood they had created. The room still hummed with whispers, but my parents sat frozen. Daniel's fists clenched on the table, his eyes darting around like a cornered animal. For years I had dreamed of this moment, not just exposing the truth, but watching them face the consequences of their own cruelty. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. You wanted to erase me, to strip me of my identity, my worth, my place in this family. But tonight it's you who will be erased. Because after everything you've done, you no longer control this family, its wealth, or its legacy. I do. I turned to the relatives still staring in shock. Starting tomorrow, all business accounts will be transferred into my name. The properties you live in, they'll be signed over to me as well. But don't worry, I added with an icy smile. I won't kick you out immediately. I'll give you time to pack your things. After all, I wouldn't want you to feel as unwanted as you made me. The jab landed. My mother's lips trembled, and my father looked like he might explode. Daniel, however, shot to his feet. This isn't over. You can't just take everything and walk away like you're the hero here. You're destroying this family. I met his glare calmly. No, Daniel. You destroyed this family the moment you chose greed over love, and lies over loyalty. I'm not destroying anything. I'm rebuilding what you tried to ruin. He lunged forward as if to grab the papers, but two uncles stepped between us, holding him back. For once, they weren't protecting him. They were protecting me. The shift in the room was undeniable. Whispers turned into open support. Cousins who once ignored me came closer, murmuring words of admiration. Aunts nodded approvingly. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. I was seen, respected, even feared. I gathered my documents slowly, deliberately, letting the silence stretch. Then I looked at my parents one final time. You always said I wasn't invited, that I didn't belong. But here's the truth. This family's future belongs to me. And tonight, you're the ones who are no longer welcome. Gasps filled the room as I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, Daniel shouted, my mother sobbed, and my father cursed under his breath. But no one followed me. Not this time. When I stepped outside into the cool night air, I felt something I hadn't in years. freedom, power, justice. I had come to that party unwanted, uninvited, humiliated. But I left as the one holding everything. And as I walked away, the weight of their betrayal finally lifted, replaced by something sweeter than I ever imagined. Revenge served cold and unforgettable, Ted. Now if you like my content, then subscribe my channel.